Hi there folks, back again for another video. I wanted to dive in and talk a little bit more about, as you could probably tell by the cover and the lovely image we have here, a little bit more about Lord of the Rings. So obviously I'm diving into this at the moment. Managed to pick up the rules manual for myself properly now, so I can have a flick through it and dive in and have fun with the game. But that got me thinking about another video I did where I talked about alternative Middle-earth miniatures, because it's kind of hard to get your hands on a lot of the Middle-earth range, especially some of the older stuff anyway. And so it had me rooting around trying to find some bits and pieces for Middle-earth and that kind of thing on eBay, and to try and fill in the gaps in my collection and pick up some of the characters that I was missing. And that led me back to this image, which I think I've probably shown off to you before. So this one's from Joseph McCullough, who has his own sort of Middle-earth collection that he's been working on. So this was a Aragorn Strider made using one of the miniatures from the Rangers in Shadow Deep range. And this golem here, this Smeagol, is actually an old Citadel model. Now, I'm not sure how many people are actually aware of this, but there's the Middle-earth range that everybody knows from the release of the Peter Jackson films. But before that, in 1985, there was a Grenadier and Citadel range that was used for the Iron Crown Enterprises Middle-earth role-playing game, which is very, very, very cool. And I thought it'd be really fun to dive into this and have a look at some of the collection that was available at the time, before it got translated over into the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game, which we will have a look at because this is a really nice little collection of stuff. So the first sort of core set of releases seem to be based around the Fellowship of the Ring, where we got this box set here that you can see, Citadel miniatures on the bottom, which had the Fellowship all together in one place. And as you can see, look at that classic old school box that has all the bits and pieces in it. Now, interestingly, so obviously we have a little bit of a close-up of some of the characters here that we've got. So there's the old Gandalf, which I think looks amazing. I love the way the beard's been done, and I really like the cloak and the staff. I think that's really cool. You've got Bill the Pony. You've got, let's just open these all up. Let's open them all up and have a look at them, shall we? Because I think it's worth at least looking at the Fellowship in their entirety, right? So here we go. So there's Bill the Pony that came in two halves, just sticking together, and away you go. Very nice. Very cool. There's Legolas. Sort of a classical elven cloak there that looks like it's made out of leaves or fur, with that kind of very sort of Robin Hood-esque look to the outfit, which I think is kind of nice. So there we've got Aragorn with Narsil. I assume that's probably Narsil at this point, which has been reforged. No, sorry, Narsil is reforged into Anduril. Of course, I know all these things, but he's still got his Strider hood and cloak and that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. It might even be his Ranger sword, actually, I suppose. There's your Boromir, which has the look of the classic Boromir that I kind of imagine from the Bakshi films as well, where he's a bit sort of bigger and rougher than you would normally think. Then we've got Frodo there, wandering away out of the Shire. Pippin with his sword at the ready, his Barrow White blade at the ready. Samwise Gamgee looking after his master, stick in hand, staff in hand. Meriadoc Brandybuck there, sword aloft as well, looking like he's about to take on the world. And then you've got Gimli there as well, with his axe held out in front of him, which I think is all pretty awesome. I'm just going to move over there. But this was also something that I found. So this is Orklord's stuff, which is on Stuff of Legends, and this is a place where you can go and store all your old, or your pictures of old miniatures and things. So these are all painted by Paul Cubbin. Oh my god, look how cool that classic box set of characters was. I love the overpronounced features and the action that you get from the miniatures. I think it's really cool. I love that they're on the hex bases as well, which is a really nice touch. Again, Boromir reminds me very much of the kind of classical fantasy version of him, as does Strider. You could almost imagine him with the West Country accent that he has in the Fellowship of the Rings, I think, which is really cool. And you've got Gandalf in the back there, and all the hobbits as well, and Gimli looking ready to chop something in two, which is very nice. Very, very cool indeed. Let's see, so here we go. Here's a bit more. Here's a few more of the close-up shots. So you got Gandalf there and Strider. I really like that Legolas model. I mean, I know some people probably don't, but I think that's a really cool interpretation of Legolas. I think that's really nice. That kind of hits all of those classical sort of D&D high fantasy notes that a lot of people love, which is really cool. And pulled together really nicely. Just in the process of firing his arrow into something, taking it out. You've got Gimli, Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, loads of amazing characters. But yeah, it's worth going back to. Here we go. Found the page again. So that was the initial box set, but then you also got a couple of secondary box sets. So we had the Nazgul on Winged Beast, which is very cool, and then we also had the Encounter at Kaza. So here we go. So the Nazgul on Winged Beast, so your Fell Beast, looking very cool. I love that they've done them as almost like proper wraiths, so you can't see their hands and things, because as they're described in the books, it's almost like the cloak is there and that's what gives them form, which I think is kind of awesome, rather than it just being like a man in a robe, which I think is really nice. And then you've also got the Balrog Encounter at Kaza, which features two mighty heroes with Aragorn and Boromir, and then Gandalf holding back the Balrog as it battles. And, would you know it, Orclord has got a few more of those to show off as well, which is really nice. So there's the Nazgul on the Winged Beast. I mean, classic. I mean, that model's not too bad, I guess, but this one, definitely showing the signs of the times, I think you'd say. I think that's kind of cool, though. I think that's really neat. I think that's a very cool pose. And I love that it's got like a massive black mace rather than a sword. I think it makes the model feel a little bit more nasty and horrible, which is always good. Then we have the Balrog Encounter at Kaza, which is looking amazing. I'm just going to let's bring up the Balrog here. And then bring up that set, which is kind of cool. So you had Gandalf A and Gandalf B, which is kind of neat. I wonder if it came with both of them in it. Maybe it was switched around. You have Boromir, a different take on Boromir now, obviously. So he's got a normal kite shield rather than the round one that he had in the other set. And you've got Aragorn Strider there, looking very menacing and cool. And that's I'd say that's a pretty awesome Balrog from back in the day. I think that's a pretty nicely done version of the sculpt. Sort of lunging forward across the bridge at Kaza to strike down at his foes. And I really like that Gandalf. I think that Gandalf's nice, with the sword sort of held out, but not sort of extended up. I reckon you could use that one for when he's fighting on the top of the mountain against the Balrog, perhaps. Calling down some lightning, if you wanted to kind of evoke that feel. So yeah, okay, so it came with two different Gandalfs, and then you got the Aragorn and the Boromir, which is kind of cool, so that's nice. And again, it came in that sort of old sort of polystyrene, which is really neat. So yeah, you got two awesome sets there, which were very cool and kind of set the scene for the kind of stuff they were trying to do. So obviously, if you're looking to use this for a role-playing game, you probably don't want it to be exclusively all just about the characters, I suppose. You probably want it to try and be... oh god. Why have I've lost something. I've lost something. There we go. I've lost it forever now. Anyway, right. So yeah, not this, but the breakdown of the old range allowed you to dive in and have a look at a whole range of awesome miniatures and stuff. So it's just I'm not gonna find my bookmark again because I want that. I want that back. Here we go. That one. Okay. this is all going wrong. There we go. So yeah, so we're back onto this, which shows you the list of the different box sets you got. So then there was blister packs that came out. So as I was saying, when you were doing this as part of like a role-playing group, you probably didn't want to have just all of the named characters. I imagine in some cases, you probably wanted to have sort of just random stuff for you to bump into and have fun with. But it feels like they did a lot of like separate packs to allow you to make the different heroes and their horses, as you can see. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I guess maybe there were some people who wanted to just play as the main characters, and so you'd play as Strider and Gimli and Legolas and try and either recreate the story or try and tell a different story, your own story perhaps. But you had the Rohirrim, Gondor Citadel Guard, the Rangers of Ithilien. I think they're amazing. We'll have a look at them. You got a couple of Sylvan Elves. You got the Wood Elves. You got the Noldor. You got your traditional High Elves. You got your Dwarves, Hobbits of the Shire. So you got them all dressed up to take it back at the end during the Scouring. And Bayonne as well, which is really nice. The Goblin Warg Rider, Orcs of the White Hand. So you're sort of Uruk-hai. The Half Orcs, more Uruk-hai. A whole bunch of those done up as like classical, almost like hobgoblins from normal Dungeons and Dragons, which I think is quite nice. Then you've got the Dunlendings, the Orcs of the Red Eye as well. So you've got Sauron's Orcs, and then the Olog High Troll, which I think is really cool. And then the Evil Hadradrim, Easterlings, the Mouth of Sauron, Saruman and the Nazgul, because you know Sauron did have physical form during this period. He just didn't really go out and do anything, which is kind of neat. Especially now you've got that weird one there, but we'll come back to that. So let's have a look and see where we. So as you can see, they pretty much this collection from Auckland has a pretty impressive range of different characters. So we're just going to open a bunch of these up, I think, and have a look at them. Got to look at Gimli. Elrond's a fascinating one. We'll look at Elrond. The Rangers of Ithilien. Oh, what else have we got? The Noldor. Let's have a look at this one. So let's go with High Elves there, some Dwarves, Hobbits of the Shire. So let's go through some heroes first. Let's go through some heroes. So here we've got Gandalf the Wizard, mounted on the back of Shadowfax. So this would have been when he was Gandalf the White. So you've got two versions of him there, mounted and on foot. I really like Shadowfax. I think Shadowfax has been done really nicely. I love that. That's a really cool horse. And the sculpting on Gandalf was pretty nice as well, actually. I think that's really nice. Well done, Paul Cubbin. Well done indeed. Here's Strider. I really like the foot version of him. I'd love to pick some of these up. I imagine they're very, very expensive. But I love that foot version of Strider with his sword at the ready. He's got two blades there. Done up with the hood and the cloak and everything as well, which is always good. Legolas. Looking a little bit more heroic here, I'd say. Although probably not as good as the original one from the Fellowship set, I'd say. But I really like that look. What a cool model. Very nice. Boromir of Gondor. Now that is a cool Boromir. I love that Boromir. With the sword held between two hands, ready to strike someone down, horn at his side and the scabbard at the back. So he's drawn it and he's left his shield behind as he gets plucked full of arrows, perhaps, defending the hobbits at Amon Hen from the advance of the Uruks and the Orcs. It's a really cool version of Boromir, and I love that they've given the horse a little bit more of a regal look as well, to mark it as the horse that Boromir rides from Gondor and Minas Tirith. Very nice indeed. You've even got Gimli, who's got himself a little pony horse as well. I like to think of this as the heroes once they've gone into the Two Towers, I think. Very nice, with the little pony nibbling away as Gimli tries to urge it to do something. And that's a really cool Gimli with the boar snout helmet as well, which is kind of nice because that kind of calls back to Tolkien's love of Anglo-Saxon history and that kind of stuff, and the mythology that he was trying to create. So it's nice to have that there built into the character as he goes about his business and fights. Now Elrond is really funny. You can see it here. Here we go. So Elrond half-elven has been given a moustache, which I would never have thought of. But when you actually think about it, he does seem like the kind of person who probably would have a moustache. You don't tend to think about that with elves, but I think that's a really funny little touch that they've added in to the character that kind of gives him a bit of character. Ha. But yeah, I would never have considered having Elrond the Elf Lord with a moustache, but I think that works really well. That makes the character feel a little bit funny, which is cool. Now these are the ones that I love. It's really interesting looking at these and seeing how the new Middle-earth design team, or at least the team that worked on the 2000s era versions of the characters, maybe drew a little bit of inspiration from these older Citadel ones, these old Citadel and Grenadier ones, because you have the Rangers with spear and bow and sword in plastic and in metal, and I think that's a neat little touch. Again, going that almost sort of classic medieval sort of Robin Hood style with the tunics and the hoods and things, but I think that's amazing. I think that's really, really cool. This was painted by Bod's Model, so it's not all Peter Cubbins. This has been collected by a whole bunch of different. So this has all been collected by Orklord, but it's from a whole range of different painters. So here's your high elves. So you have them marching to war. I love that they've done them as slightly fey and spiteful looking, because that's how a lot of people tend to envision elves. Weirdly, that's kind of how I viewed the Sylvan elves. So I'm just going to scroll back up actually and see if I can find the Sylvan elves. Here we go, wood elves. Let's see if we can find some good wood elves. Right, so we bring those down here and compare them between the two. Yeah, I think they've done a good job of this. I think I would have made these look a little bit less regal than what you see here, and sort of maybe bring them in line with that slightly more sort of snooty look that you've got on those elves. Because I think I've always imagined that as being the elves of Mirkwood and that kind of stuff. Of them being slightly more fey and mischievous compared to the slightly more regal high elves and the Noldor and things. But yeah, very cool stuff indeed for your elves. And of course you've got your dwarves. Very classic sort of dwarf miniatures, which I think is quite nice. Let's click on this one. What a cool look to those. Paint them up blue maybe, and keep them with that idea of the the blue mountains. Or go with the green that the Citadel team used with the 2000s models, and have them as like an expedition into Kaza Doom perhaps as well. Very nice. I love all the mailed fists and things, and you can always tell a good dwarf by the immaculateness of their beard. And I like that you've got two with like proper full beards, and then one that's maybe a little bit more of a beardling, a youngling, who has it just on the bottom but then not at the top, and that's why he's so furious and angry on the battlefield. I think it's really cool. Very nice models there. The Halfings of the Shire. Oh, I love these. Oh, gotta open them all. Gotta open them all. Got to open them all. So we have Bilbo Baggins off on his adventures from Bag End. Maybe at the start of Fellowship of the Ring. Sort of travelling his way to Rivendell to see Master Elrond with his lovely moustache. He's even got the red book on his back, which I think is a really nice touch. He's got a bunch of other books with him. I'd love to paint. I love the painting on that one from Cubbin again. Just pulling out that. It reminds me of Ian Holmes' version of him. And I think it looks really cool. Very nice indeed. Frodo Baggins. Frodo Baggins of the Shire, wearing his mithril coat given to him by Thorin. Although I guess by this point, during the scouring of the Shire, maybe that would have been taken off him. I don't know if he ever got it back. That's interesting. I can't remember, but I'm sure someone could tell me in the comments if he ever got it back. Looking very cool there. Looking very regal. Meriadoc Brandybuck of the Shire, and Esquire of Rohan, looking very nice. Again, on his way back to free the Shire from the clutches of Sharky. Peregrine Took, guard of the Citadel, with his Gondorian tabard on, which is very nice, bellowing to the skies. with the white tree on his shield as well. The thing that I quite like about these is that it kind of embraces that old school look of them, which is quite nice. And like I really love this, the sort of true proportions that we got of the the Peter Jackson miniatures. But I always love looking back at these slightly more heroic versions of the characters from the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and things, and seeing them brought to life in a different way. And the Samwise Gamgee looking like he's just off to go and beat the bounds and scare something. I love that even during this final period of storytelling during the scouring of the Shire, he's still as humble as ever, which is really nice. Oh, and then we had one of my favourite characters ever from The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, Bayonne. That's the massive werebear. It's a bit more cuddly bear, but I think that's actually kind of awesome. My favourite is the new Grimbeorn model. I think the Grimbeorn model's amazing. But I like the tightly knotted muscles of Bayonne there with his axe at the ready. It reminds me of some very old artwork of him sort of leaning on a weapon as he consults with Gandalf and meets with Bilbo and the rest of the dwarves outside of his home. But yeah, very nice indeed. Oh my god, I opened so many I opened so many tabs. Boo 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 boo. Let's get rid of all those. I keep scrolling down. So yeah, so we looked at a bunch of the goodies. So let's look at some of the baddies, shall we? So yeah, keep going through. The Dunlendings, the Olag High, the Mouth of Sauron, the Easterlings, the Mouth of... Here we go. Ah, some proper bad boys. That looks very similar to the other character we've just seen. The Dead Men of Dunharrow. Ooh. Aragorn King, the Barrow-wights. And let's open... Did I open that one? We'll find out. Okay, so a Goblin Wolf Rider there. So a Goblin on his warg chasing down the Fellowship. Or maybe even for use in The Hobbit if you wanted to. You just change the eye design on there. A proper big band of orcs. Look at that. I love that. I still love the hex bases. I think that's really cool. I'd love to use these with the One Ring RPG. Just to give us like a sense of proportion and scale to battles and stuff. I think that'd be really cool. But wow. I love those. Classic, slightly more pig-faced orcs, which is cool. And I like that they haven't done them in green. They've done them in sort of browns and sort of tanned flesh like that. I think that's a really cool way of doing them. Very nice. The Dunlendings. A very interesting take on the Dunlendings, I guess. You know, the ones that fought against the Rohirrim. But yeah, I guess it's a look. Very Brian Blessed. I'm not too sure about those, but they're kind of cool, I suppose. The Olog High Troll. The smaller version was sold as the Hammer Troll, but was originally sculpted for this role. Thought too small. Ah, okay. Again, some interesting monsters. I think I prefer that one over that one, but pretty cool, pretty cool. One of the Southrons, done as a slightly, I guess you'd say, sort of like a Arabian warrior style approach to things, which kind of matches, I suppose. With his sword at the ready, about to swing out for someone. Maybe this is one of the Southrons that fought against Faramir in on the Pelennor and the Ramsecor, swinging for him with his sword and things. Pretty cool. You could probably have them as a nice sort of diorama. An Easterling, which in this case they've done a slightly more of like a Mongolian warrior, which is interesting. Sort of like a steppe warrior, perhaps. Which I'm not sure, does that mesh with the kind of way that it probably envisioned? Maybe, perhaps. I like the look of the warrior though. It's a pretty cool sculpt. Very nicely done. Very nicely done indeed. Painted in, released in 1985. I was 2 years away from being born. Now this guy is like sending me into the stratosphere. Like what the hell? So we've got The Mouth of Sauron by Steve Musserad here. That is wild. This is like going into some kind of Games Workshop territory, right? With like the Warhammer vibes with the skeletal horse and stuff. But I kind of dig him in a weird way. I'm not sure about the kind of Skeletor style facial expression. Yeah, I am the mouth of Sauron. Well, that probably is kind of a fun way to voice him, I think. That's pretty cool. Here's a nice collection. So we've got Sauron in the middle there. Formless, but ready to assume command of Middle-earth. Gazing into his... gazing into his Palantir there. And sort of plotting and stuff. Well, we have Saruman there, clutching his own Palantir. Or Palantir, I don't know how you... Palantiri. There, that's what you call both of them, I guess. And sort of using it to trying to master it as well, which I think is quite cool. And then you've got a classic sort of Nazgul. And I like to think of that maybe as like a Witch King with the crown on his head. But again, going for the idea of him being effectively formless, bar the cloak and armour that sort of gives him form. I really like that, though. I think that's a really nice representation of trying to do Sauron, rather than making him sort of heavily armoured. I like the idea of him just being, like, not a war leader at this point in the War of the Ring. He's just pulling the strings in the background. A different take on Saruman the White, although that looks a lot like Gandalf. But I really like that version of him. Again, trying to master the Palantir and use it against his foes on the battlefield. The Lord of the Nazgul, so here's your Witch King. A really nice horse again. God, they do a really good job on horses. And I like the paint scheme from Cubbin here, where you've got like the almost spectral blues and greys mixing in with the black. And the fact that you can't see any hand details or anything, because again, it's a shapeless shadow given form by the cloak. I think it makes it look really dangerous and deadly, which is what you want really from your orcs. From your Nazgul. And here's a massive array of the dead of Dunharrow, summoned forth by Aragorn the King to fight and aid them in their quest to rid Minas Tirith of their foes, of Sauron's minions. Very cool indeed. And then you got some Barrow-wights, which again, they look like they've almost inspired the ones that we got from the 2000s, which is cool. Again, with that idea of the flowing sort of whites cloaks, and then added on with the bronze armour that you see there as well, which I think is a nice touch. But yeah, very cool little set. I like their array of different weapons and that kind of stuff as well for trying to capture the hobbits. Maybe not as accomplished in detail as the later ones we got in the 2000s, but I think the spirit is still there, and I think they look really, really cool. Some very nice models indeed. Nice one. Well painted anti-mont for those ones back in the day. So yeah, let's. Can I close all tabs to the right? Yes, I can. Ho. That's the easy way to do it. So a couple more models just before we finish off, just to kind of draw us back. So you have Knight of Dol Amroth, the Hobbit personalities, an Eagle of the Misty Mountains, and then Treebeard, Tom Bombadil. So here's Aragorn, King, resplendent in his armour as he marches towards the Black Gate to do battle with Sauron's forces. Maybe a little bit busy, perhaps, but an interesting model. So there's a version 2 and version 1. I think I prefer version 2 there, I think. Although very similar. I think it's mainly to do with the horse, I would guess. In fact, it is more to do with the horse. I think that horse is a better horse, probably. But yeah, very nice models there. Showing off the different takes on Aragorn. A Knight of Dol Amroth, which is sort of Prince Imrahil's forces. Looking very nice as well. Classic, almost Bretonnian style to them, which is cool. The personalities of the Hobbit. Now this is the set that I really like. And this is where Joseph McCullough got his Gollum from. I would love to get my hands on this kit. I wonder if you can find this on eBay somewhere. But here we've got Gollum. We've got Bilbo there with Sting at the ready. Perhaps trying to make a point or dive for cover. We've got an old Gandalf the Gray there looking very nice and trying to reason with someone. And then the mighty King Thorin bellowing at the top of his voice as he goes to do battle with the men and elves who have robbed him of his precious jewels and the Arkenstone. But really cool models. I absolutely love that. I think of all the sets, that's my favourite. I think it's a really nice little collection. Tom Bombadillo, bounding into the action here on the back of a little pony, and sort of trying to usher Old Man Willow away with his. I love it when you get this little tiny version of him with like a lily leaf that has little flowers on it that he's collected for Goldberry. That's a really nice touch. And they've still given him his yellow boots and things as well. So a very nice little collection there. I love the old battered hat. It's a really nice touch. Now I swear this eagle is one that the High Elves got in Warhammer Fantasy not long after. Or maybe even at the same time. But, you know, a great eagle of the Misty Mountains. Could also just be Gwaihir if you wanted it to be, I suppose. But very nice indeed. And then Treebeard, who looks a little bit squat, but I quite like how dopey he is. What a strange version of Treebeard. But that's kind of cool, I guess. I think I prefer this way of painting him, I think. I think this more natural look, I think, works a lot better for the model. And deals with the proportions in a better way, I think. And highlights it in a better way. But very cool mod, very cool indeed. So yeah, like as you can see, there was loads and loads of models out there back during the day that could have allowed you to build Lord of the Rings way back when. I think the reason that I wanted to kind of bring this up actually was because there's probably people out there that have parents or grandparents maybe who actually played the Middle-earth role-playing game back in the day, and maybe some of these models still exist within their collections. It might be worth it, if you're a bit of a Lord of the Rings fan, going to ask them about this kind of stuff and see whether or not you could dig it out and either repaint it or, you know, just use it for your collection and have fun with it, and genuinely just enjoy some classic old school Middle-earth miniatures. Not all of these are shown in the painted gallery and stuff, which is all good. I think they've done a pretty good job of collecting together most of the characters that were available during the time. This is just wild. I love that. I think that's you know, it gets that eye vibe going along, but then you've got almost like this weird body horror thing going on with all the homunculi in the back and the tendrils of Sauron reaching out. Certainly gives him a slightly more pitiful look, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that's something to leave you with, I suppose. But yeah, you know, it's sometimes nice to look back and see what miniatures ranges were out there before we picked up the ones that we're very familiar with. I think this was a really nice walk down memory lane, and maybe some of you remember tinkering with these back in the day. Maybe you have some of these models yourself lying around in a box somewhere. Maybe it's time to get them out and give them a little bit of a spring clean and a dust and get them ready for the tabletop once again for a role-playing game or skirmish game or something like that. I'm collecting Rohan at the moment, so, you know, it's giving me some ideas. I like the idea of doing it almost like a chalk outline of the horse, like they've done on the shield there, which makes it a lot easier to paint shield iconography. Although most of it is actually baked onto the plastic models now, isn't it? But yeah, very nice indeed. Just before we cap things off, if you thought that was cool, there is also an entire repository of all of the miniatures, or at least most of the miniature sets that were ever released for the Lord of the Rings, the strategy battle game, back in the day. It doesn't have a lot of the newer stuff in here, although you can find all of that as well. But if you are interested in having a look at some of these sets and what was in them, and trying to get a guide as to what you should be picking up and what you should be typing into eBay, this is a really cool way to go and do it. Just literally dive in here and see if you can find something to use. Like, for example, I was looking at the Two Towers period, so that's sort of here. And I was looking at this Defenders of Rohan set because this is where I got. I really want to get my hand on the Eowyn model, which isn't pictured here, annoyingly. Maybe she's not in that set. What's she in? What's she in? Let me have a look. I thought it was Defenders of Rohan. Weird. I thought it was that one. There's like a version of her anyway, in her sort of traditional attire, not her armour. Here we go. Heroes of Helm's Deep. Is this the one? Yes, this is the one. Because I've got that Gambling, which is a really cool version of him without the banner. But I really love this version of Eowyn, and I really want to get my hands on that, so I'm going to be eBaying away trying to find that one in the meantime. But yeah, it's worth coming to check this out. You know, miniaturesworkshop.com, and just have a look at it and see what you can find. And then, of course, make sure to go and check out the stuff for Legends. I'm going to have links to all of this stuff down below in the comments anyway, so you can have a look at it yourself and reminisce about times past. But I've been talking about this for far too long, even though it's nice to have a look back at some of these older ranges. Let's have a look at the Middle-earth role-playing game. Here we go. So yeah, so this is the one that everyone will remember, probably, with this amazing artwork on the front of it, which was just awesome. I absolutely love the look of that. I think I've got a version of it somewhere that I managed to get hold of. But yeah, some really awesome stuff there for you to go and check out as well if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the past of Middle-earth on the tabletop in all of its various forms. But yeah, I'm going to leave everybody with those amazing images that you can go and have a look through and have fun with. See if I can find one of my favourite sets to leave us on. Let's go back to that, shall we? But yeah, if you've enjoyed this video and this look down memory lane, make sure to drop me a comment down below and tell me which of the miniatures you liked, which ones you didn't like. Do you like these old school versions with the slightly more heroic proportions? Do you like the Peter Jackson line that came out in the 2000s and was used for the Middle-earth strategy battle game? Did you play the Middle-earth role-playing game? Do you play the One Ring? Have you played Adventures in Middle-earth, the one from Cubicle 7? And what kind of army are you collecting at the moment for the Middle-earth strategy battle game as well? Very cool book. Nice read. But yeah, some cool stuff there. Drop your thoughts down below in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that goodness. And I'll be back for another video next week. I don't know what it's going to be about. It might be about Middle-earth. It might be about historical wargaming. I've been having some thoughts. We shall dive in and find out together. But until then, thank you very much, and I'll see you later. Bye.